On January 30th, 1933, Adolf Hitler, who was the leader of National Socialist German Workers, the Nazi Party, became Germany's chancellor. They soon began their propaganda campaign against its opponents, the Jews, whom the Nazis blamed for Germany's ills. The propaganda stated, "The Jews are our misfortune." Soon enough, Jews and other groups became isolated from society. They were put into concentration camps, where they would soon be tortured and killed. The concentration camps were horrible places. What happened in the concentration camps was extremely wrong and upsetting. The camps were scary and cruel to any who was put in them. Life for the prisoners was very unfortunate. Everyone has most likely heard of the Holocaust before. It is a tragic flaw that has left its footprint on the world. The Jews, gypsies, homosexuals, and others held in the camps were treated miserably and maliciously. The people were forced to sleep in small areas with many people. Immediately, men, women, and children, and elders were separated. Families and friends were split up and taken away. They were worked to death. Sadly, their future was going to become worse.
When they arrive at the camps and are sent to certain rooms, it was not a pleasant place to see where they would be staying. They had to sleep in crowded places. Living conditions were so terrible that people in the camps would also die of diseases. The buildings were overcrowded with people. They also were not able to stay clean and healthy. Their bodies became more able to acquire sicknesses. They slept in barracks and could only resort to praying.
Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Yitzanu B'mitzvotav V'tzivanu Al Nitalat Lulav Yihi Ratzon Milfa Netacha Adonai Eloheinu Ve'Elohai Avotanu Kishem Shikiyam Ti Vehashavati Bashuka Zukin Eskin Isa Isahara Abaha Lebushai Bizuka Toro Shel Livyatan Ishahana Abaa Berushayim.
They were also forced to work very hard when they were very weak. Men were forced to do more laborious work than women. Men especially were worked to death. If certain men became too weak, they would be killed. A minimum workday became 11 hours in all concentration camps. At Auschwitz, labor was used as one of the main ways to kill prisoners. Usually they worked with building needs for the camps, such as leveling out the ground, placing blocks that were extremely heavy into proper places, digging drainage ditches, and laying roads. The Third Reich made labor become worse. More were beaten. They would sometimes dig for coal if the camps were by mines. Women didn't have hard working conditions, but they also had to clean a lot. And if the camps in the kitchens for the Nazis and other soldiers. Women were forced to work in kitchens and cook for many of the officers. But besides cooking and cleaning, they would also have to sew and make pillowcases and other uniforms for the inmates. The people that were imprisoned would sometimes have pillowcases that were stuffed with human hair from people that have died in the camps. The overall treatment was terrible. They had little food given to them. They were very weak, so working was hard. Many starved to death. For breakfast, they were given 10 ounces of stale bread with 1 small piece of salami. They also had 1 ounce of tasteless coffee. At noon, soup was given with old carrots and rutabagas. Dinner was stale bread with jam. At least they did have 3 meals a day, although the average person received 1,300 calories a day. People who had to work harder received 1,700 calories. After a while, they would start to starve. The prisoners began an organic deterioration, experiencing physical exhaustion, leading to death. They lived off of stale bread, weak potato soup, and anything else small that was given to them, and drank a substance that was bitter and disgusting. One of the truly unfortunate events of the Holocaust was that at the concentration camps, babies and old people were quickly killed. Babies and elders could not work, so they were usually killed first, while others were forced to work. It must have been such a depressing thing to see when young children were taken away from their parents. It has also been said that babies were thrown into the air and shot. The level of cruelness is unbelievable. There was very few concentration camps where Jews would actually take action. Like the one in Soviet war, they actually did. Jews would try and escape, so they would try and fight against the Nazis, so they could maybe have a shred of freedom and hope for their lives to get back to normal. Unfortunately, sometimes the Nazis would fall and the Jews would conquer, but usually they would not make it out alive, no matter what, because other Nazis would usually be there soon to help. As you can see, the journey was very hard for many of the people in concentration camps. The lives of these poor people was so unlucky and so unfortunate. They were treated so terribly, and none of them deserved it. Sadly, their fate was very horrible. Almost all of them that were taken were killed in an unfortunate way that was so cruel. It has been a very sad point in history and is still remembered today. Many of the Jews were put into showers. They thought that they were going to just get clean, but they were really going to their death. They were also burned in furnaces. There was a pit of fire, and they would all have to walk in a line to it. But if you stopped, you were shot. Unfortunately, many were burned to death. Also, Soviet prisoners of war were also shot or burned at camps. Beginning in September 1941, poison gas started to be used. They were put into gas chambers. The prisoners thought they were going to take showers. Unfortunately, they were heading to their death. Life was extremely unpleasant for the Jews and others that were held in the concentration camps. They were treated very awful. Many survivors came with terrible memories as they left. The number of survivors is not even close to the number of deaths. 5.9 to 6 million Jews were killed. 3.3 million Soviet POWs were killed. 1.8 to 2 million non-Jewish Poles were killed. About 220,000 to 270,000 Gypsies were killed, maybe more though. 200,000 to 250,000 disabled were killed. 5,000 to 15,000 homosexuals were killed. 2,500 to 5,000 Jehovah's Witnesses were killed. Life was over for many. The Holocaust was one of the most upsetting events in all of history. The life in concentration camps was unfair and miserable. Here is one of the Jews who escaped the camp. He defeated a Nazi and was able to get away.
So every month, a train would come in, and they would pick up the seamstresses and the people that weren't too good. They'd give all the people that weren't too good to the showers so they can shower up, but they were gas chambers, and they would all die. But the seamstresses would stay and build or create clothes and boots and all this other stuff. So for the Germans, and the Germans would pay them. And in Sobibor, they would sneak in. They would call in one German and they'd kill him every single time. So that was their plan for escaping, taking out one German at a time.